Hello everyone. So today we are going to solve the sedimentary geology questions, and I want to start it from 72 ocean, and we're going to move backwards. Okay, frontward. Sorry. Um, just a minute. I'm going to solve this with red one. Yeah. So question है, which one of the following are the journal features for the recognition of marine cements and limestone? लाइमस्टोन्स के अंदर एक्चुअली बहुत सारे मरीन सीमेंट्स हैं डिफरेंट टाइप्स के. दे मेक अ डिफरेंट शेप और सो. जो ये क्वेश्चन है कार्बोनेट डायाजेनेसिस के ऊपर है. तो इफ़ यू वांट टू रीड मोर अबाउट इट सो रीड कार्बोनेट डायाजेनेसिस फ्रॉम EPG पाठशाला नोट्स. एंड यू नीड टू नो कि how to identify marine cementation and how to distinguish it from the burial or meteoric cement. So marine cements are something that just form quickly soon after the deposition, like in seawater saturated pores. Okay, so now the first statement is these are the first generation cement. So marine cement जो हैं इनकी खास बात होती है कि ये जो हैं जैसे ही प्रेसिपिटेट होंगे वैसे ही बन जाते हैं. सो इमीडिएटली आफ्टर डिपोजिशन दे जस्ट गेट प्रेसिपिटेट एंड ऑन द सी फ्लोर और या तो ये सी फ्लोर पे बनेंगे या फिर ये शैलो सब सरफेस पे बनेंगे. ओके, नेक्स्ट स्टेटमेंट इज दीज आर यूजली फ्रॉम द आइसोपैकस फ्रिंजेस अराउंड grains and cavity walls. So isopachous fringe mean a cement of uniform thickness. A cement of total uniform thickness is there around the grains, and it indicates pores fully saturated with water, and the cement precipitation in phreatic marine environment. Okay, so gravity has no effect and it has this uniform coating, and it is the classic marine cement feature. Now coming to the third statement, the crystals are usually ferroan and luminescent. So why incorrect? जो फेरोन है, फेरोन्स कैल्साइट जो हैं वो फॉर्म होते हैं बरियल डायाजेनेसिस में. ओके, एंड इट रिक्वायर्स द रिड्यूसिंग एनवायरनमेंट कंडीशन. luminescence अंडर cathodoluminescence. So this is something that indicates they are Mn rich Fe bearing burial cements. So marine cements are typically non-ferroan, उसमें कोई आयरन नहीं होता है, and they are non-luminescent, जो कि Mn rich और iron rich चीज़ें जो हैं वो नहीं बताते. luminescence under cathodoluminescence. So this describes the burial cement, not marine. ये स्टेटमेंट जो है बरियल सीमेंट के लिए अगर इस साल क्वेश्चन आएगा तो वो इसके लिए हुआ. ठीक है. देन वी हैव दे आर यूजली फाइब्रस इन नेचर. मरीन सीमेंट्स जो हैं दे आर कॉमनली एरागोनेटिक, कैल्सिटिक तो होंगी, एंड हाई मैग्नीशियम कैल्साइट लाइक डोलोमिटिक इन नेचर. सो दे आर फॉर्म्ड एज अ फाइब्रस और ब्लेडेड क्रिस्टल्स. दिस इंडिकेट्स अ रैपिड प्रेसिपिटेशन फ्रॉम सी वाटर. सो इट्स अ स्ट्रॉन्ग मरीन सिग्नेचर. सो द करेक्ट ऑप्शन is 1, 2 and 4. Okay, also marine cement और burial, if we have to make a comparison marine और burial के बीच में, marine cement they are early, burial are late, they are aragonite in nature, they are ferroan in nature, they are fibrous, bladed, but the burial ones are blocky in nature. Okay, that is something. Isopachous fringe is that we have in marine but not in the burial cement. Luminescence we don't have in marine, but in burial we have it. Okay, so marine cements are early, fibrous, non-ferroan, and form isopachous fringes around the grain. Okay, so coming to the 71 question, consider the following depositional condition. So the question is on the depositional condition. Okay, a microtidal to mesotidal coastline with tidal range less than 3 meter, a steady sand supply, a stable low gradient coastal plain. So which one of the above conditions favor the formation of beach barrier island? So in this question they want to know our understanding about the barrier island, wave dominated coastal landform. And this barrier island, requires a very delicate balance between the waves, between the tides, between the sediment supply and the coastal gradient. So we need a balance with that. Okay. Now coming to the first statement, a microtidal to mesotidal coastline with tidal range less than 3 meters. So Barrier Island, it forms best under the microtidal to mesotidal condition. Okay. If the tidal range is really strong, so strong tidal currents, if they dominate, okay, if tidal range is large, strong tidal currents dominate. Barrier Island get dissected into tidal flats and channels. So waves must be dominant coastal process. Okay. Now coming to the second statement, a steady sand supply. So barrier islands are sand rich bodies, and the sand source from where the sand comes is the longshore drift के थ्रू आती है, रिवर माउथ के थ्रू आती है, और शेल्फ रीवर्किंग के थ्रू वो सैंड जो है अलग अलग जगह से आती है. So without continuous sand supply, how would a island grow? It won't, and the erosion will dominate. So longshore drift, river mouth, and shelf reworking. So abundant sand is a non-negotiable requirement that is needed for barrier island. Now coming to the low gradient, gently sloping coast, a stable low gradient coast plain. So when there is a gentle slope, okay, so it allows the wave energy dissipation and shoreward migration. Okay, and steep one, they are something that promotes the erosion, and they do not allow the stabilization. So barrier island, they thrive on a wide shallow shelf, only then they will be stabilized. So all the statements here are correct. Okay. Now coming to the 70th question. So which one of the following pairs are correctly matched? So Bay Head Delta, interdistributary bay, sand ribbons, and inner ramp. Okay. So Bay Head Delta is wave dominated estuary. That is correct. Bay Head Delta is something that forms at the head of the estuary, and waves redistribute the sediments over here. Final sediments accumulation also happens, so it's a correct genetic association. Now coming to the second, interdistributary bay. Interdistributary bay is something that forms on the prolonged delta top. It is something that forms between the distributary channels, and it requires a stable delta plane and long-lived distributary system. It is a time-dependent feature. Now coming to the next, that is sand ribbon. Sand ribbon is tide-dominated shelf. So sand ribbons are the elongated sand bodies, and they are oriented parallel to the tidal currents, and they are diagnostic of the strong bidirectional flow. So it's a classic tidal shelf indicator, sand ribbons. Inner ramp is a carbonate platform term. Okay. And it refers to the shallow marine carbonate system. It has nothing to do with the inner estuary. So this is a conceptual category mismatch. So first, second, and third is the correct answer. Now coming to the 69 question. Match hai with the list 1 and the list 2. Select the correct one. So shoot cutoff is something. ओके, फर्स्ट लेट मी टेल यू कि इसने क्या क्या दिया हुआ है. प्रोसेस दिया है और डिपोजिशनल एनवायरनमेंट दिया हुआ है. तो हर एक प्रोसेस जो है, जहाँ पे हर एक प्रोसेस जो भी हो रहा है यहाँ पे, उसकी अपनी अपनी हाइड्रोडायनेमिक कंडीशंस हैं. ठीक है. तो शूट कट ऑफ इज़ अ meandering channel. So it is something that happens during flood. Water shortcuts there across the point bar, and it is a characteristic of the meandering river. So braided river, they do not form shoots off. Only meandering channel forms only in the flooding condition. Now we have the geostrophic current. It is present in the shelf. So the flow is controlled by the pressure gradient and the Coriolis force, and it requires a broad open water, minimal bottom friction. So continental shelf is ideal for the geostrophic current. Now coming to the contour current. Contour current is something that happens in continental rise. So flow parallel to the bathymetric contours, and it is driven by thermohaline circulations, and it produces the contourites. Continental rise is the classic contourite environment. Rip current are the shore phase. they return from the surf zone, okay, and it is perpendicular to the shoreline. Shallow and wave dominated, and they cannot occur offshore, okay. Now all the matches A का 3, B का 1, C का 4 and D का 2. First option is correct. Now coming to the 68th question. Consider the following statement regarding the classification of sandstone on the basis of principal components quartz, feldspar and rock fragments. So this question is a test of the QFR classification, and it is a relationship between the mineral composition, its maturity and its provenance. So QFR, it indicates the first one, the ratio QFR is a rough measure of the compositional maturity. This statement is correct because the quartz is something that is chemically stable and mechanically durable. Feldspar and rock fragments are unstable. So if there is high Q by FR ratio, it means there has been more weathering, longer transport and multiple sedimentary cycles. So it is a direct indicator of compositional maturity. Now coming to the statement 2, the ratio of Q by F plus Rx measure the progress towards the ultimate N type of pure quartz sand. So this statement is also correct. Why? Because there is this quartz arenite that has 90 to 95% of quartz in it. As feldspar and rock fragments, they just get destroyed in the process, and Q increases is relative to the F and R. Hence rising QFR approach to the quartz arenite. Now coming to the statement 3, the ratio FRX reflects provenance. So FR ratio is exactly useful for the So QFR is exactly useful for the provenance ratio. Why? Because feldspar rich sandstone जो होते हैं वो ग्रेनिटिक और बेसमेंट सोर्स इंडिकेट करते हैं. रॉक फ्रेगमेंट रिच जो है वो ओरिजेनिक और रिसाइकल्ड सोर्सेज के बारे में बोलते हैं कि वो ज़्यादा है. तो अगर फेल्डस्पार रिच सैंडस्टोन है तो आप समझ जाना कि ग्रेनिटिक और बेसमेंट सोर्स है, और अगर रॉक फ्रेगमेंट्स है तो ओरिजेनिक सोर्स है, रिसाइकल्ड सोर्स है. तो एफ आर रेशियो हेल्प इनवर्स द सोर्स रॉक टाइप एंड टेक्टोनिक सेटिंग्स. तो स्टेटमेंट 3 इज ऑल्सो करेक्ट. नाउ the ratio F by Rx cannot distinguish between a deep-seated provenance and a supracrustal provenance. So क्या होता है कि जो डीप सीटेड सोर्सेज होते हैं जैसे कि ग्रेनाइट हो गया, ग्नाइस हो गया, ये ज़्यादा फेल्डस्पार प्रोड्यूस करते हैं, ठीक है. और सुप्राक्रिस्टल जो प्रोवेनेंस वाली चीज़ें होती हैं जैसे कि सेडिमेंट्री और वोल्केनिक, ये ज़्यादा लिथिक फ्रेगमेंट्स जो हैं वो बताते हैं. ओके. So of course they can distinguish between them. FR ratio can easily distinguish. So this statement is conceptually wrong just because they put cannot in it. Okay, so 1, 2 and 3 is correct. अब इस क्वेश्चन में आप ये देखना कि statement, if there is a 3-line statement in UPSC paper and they have put not and cannot in it, trust me that statement is correct. Only the negative point that has been put in it in 99% of the cases comes like that. Okay. Now coming to the 67th question. In sandstone, discontinuous matrix-like material formed by squeezing and flowing of weak detrital grains in adjacent pore space is called what? So this question is totally based on the fact of sandstone का diagenesis वो carbonate का था, ये sandstone का diagenesis उसके ऊपर question है. Matrix and secondary matrix and the effects of mechanical compaction or unstable lithic grains. So the keywords are discontinuous matrix and squeezing and deformation of the grain in the adjacent pore space. So this is a total statement and it directly leads to the pseudomatrix one. So pseudomatrix, initial deposition, sandstone जो है वो contain करता है quartz and feldspar and unstable lithic fragments like shale, phyllite, volcanic fragments in it. What happened after the initial deposition? Burial compaction happens. With increasing overburden pressure, strong grain quartz resist compaction and weak lithic grains deform just plastically. So grain squeezing, because of that burial and compaction grains squeezing happens, so weak grains get flattened up and smeared between the rigid grains, so they lose original grain boundaries. and result appear as a fine muddy matrix, but it's not depositional, it's secondary and it is discontinuous. So this squeeze material is known as pseudomatrix. Now pseudomatrix is something that is formed after the deposition, and it is due to the mechanical compaction, and it is discontinuous in nature, and it is formed from deformed lithic grains. So this exactly matches with the question. Now coming to the orthomatrix. Orthomatrix is the true primary matrix, and it is deposited along the sand grains, fine material, present at the time of deposition, not formed by grain squeezing. Now epimatrix is refers to the cement precipitated during diagenesis. Suppose there is a diagenesis, a cement that get precipitated, and it has this orthogenic minerals like silica, calcite, iron oxides. They fill pores, not deformed grain. Okay. Now we have the protomatrix, another term used for primary depositional matrix, and it is same as the orthomatrix. So these both are same. Epimatrix is something that refers to the cement that precipitated during diagenesis. Orthogenic minerals are there, but they are not deformed grains. Okay. So matrix origin, whether it's a depositional one or it's a diagenetic one, that is the main confusion in this question. So if the matrix come from the deformed grains, it form the pseudomatrix. Okay. 66. So match list 1 with list 2. We have this sedimentary structure and we have this mechanism. So sedimentary structure is something that has been formed by the 4 fundamentally different process. That is what are those processes are. There is transport, bed load, saltation, then there is this deposition, suspension, fallout, then there is a soft sediment deformation, then there is hydraulic change. So these all are there. So we have to link sedimentary structure with what mechanism they are formed. Starting with the first one, convolute bedding. Convolute bedding is something that has been formed by the differential forcing of hydroplastic non-cohesive sediments. So convolute bedding is something that occurs in a water saturated and unconsolidated sediments, and they have been triggered by the rapid loading, shock happened, liquefaction happened. So sediment, they just behave plastically, hydroplastic. So that is not a transport but post depositional deformation. So that matches correctly with this. Okay. Now we have the prod marks. Prod marks something that happens because of the saltation load, because of the saltation process. Okay. So it is something that has been formed by bouncing and rolling and skipping along the bed and point impact depression. So this is a diagnostic of saltation, not suspension. So saltation, load, and transportation of the grain is the one first. Now we have the rel marks. They just flow during sinking, falling sea level. So thin sheet flow during water retreat, and it is common in tidal flats, beach backwash. So they represent the drainage of shallow water. So rel marks are something that has been formed by the thin flow during sinking water. Now we have the climbing ripples. Climbing ripples is something that are formed by the bed load and the suspension load sedimentation. So ripple migrates when the sediment is also settling vertically. So this requires a high sediment concentration, obviously, and they have this rapid aggradation that is causing this vertical movement. So this is a combination of horizontal migration and vertical fallout. So that matches correctly with the bed load and suspension load sedimentation. Okay, so with this, A ka second, B ka first, so this option is correct one. Now coming to the 65th question. So the correct arrangement of the current ripple crest in order of increasing energy condition is what? So here we need to understand the ripple morphology, like how flow velocity is acting, flow competence is happening, what is the degree of flow unidirectionally, and sediment mobility. So as energy increases, ripple crest evolve from irregular and unstable to highly organized and symmetric form. So what happens if there is too much energy is required? So there will be irregularity initially, but with increasing energy there will be a symmetry like this. Okay, highly organized and asymmetric forms. So We have this what? Let me tell you. We have this quaternary, sinus, linguate, and lunate. So there is this order. Sinus. Sinus has the lowest energy. Okay? They are highly irregular, fluctuating currents. They're formed by the fluctuating currents, weak and poorly organized flow, and they're typical of very low energy, shallow subaqueous setting. And crest instability reflects insufficient energy to organize sediments. Then we have this quaternary ripples. They are smooth, gentle, curved crest, and they're more irregular than the sinus ripple. They have been formed by the slightly stronger, more consistent flow. Energy is higher than sinus but still moderate. Then we have this lunate ripples. They are the crescent shaped one. They are stronger current directionally, and they develop under the moderate velocities and clear downstream migration. So this asymmetry indicates a strong transportation competence. Now we have this linguade. Linguade ripples has the highest energy, and their tongue shape, crest is there, and downstream pointing horns, and they are highly asymmetric, and they are formed under strong unidirectional currents and high sediment transportation rates. So these represents the maximum current energy before dune formation. So any sequence placing linguade early violates the energy logic. Any sequence pointing sinus after lunate reverses the hydrodynamic control. So more organized and asymmetric ripple leads to the higher energy. B option is correct. Now coming to the 64 question. A waxing waning grading in a sedimentary bed is defined by grading up from. So there is a waxing waning grading records changes in the flow energy through time. In a waxing phase, the energy increases, and in the waning phase, the energy decreases. So this is common in storm deposits, flood deposits, tidal cycles, etc. Detailed energy evolution we have to take care of. So in a waxing stage, in an increasing energy stage, flow strength increases, sediments increases upward, and reverse grading happen. So it leads to the mud, silt, and sand, like in a reverse grading. And the waning stage, like in a decreasing energy, the flow energy decreases, course against something that settle first, and it has a normal grading. So sand, silt, and mud. Okay, so combined vertical sequence, both the stages are preserved in one bed. There is mud, sand, mud. So this symmetrical grading is a diagnostic of waxing waning flow. So sand to mud, only waning flow is there. Simple normal grading. Mud to sand to mud, only this one, the conditions is there. So waxing waning grading mein our D option will be correct one. Now coming to the 63rd question. The chemical weathering process in which the hydrogen ions replaces the mobile ions in the mineral and put them in a solution causing dissolution or partial alteration of the mineral is called what? So UPSC here is trying to know whether do you understand the ion exchange reactions in here in chemical weathering and not just definition. So hydrogen ions, if they replace the mobile ions in the mineral, so this phase, it directly tells us about the hydrolysis. Hydrolysis is what? Rainwater is something that absorbs the CO2 from the atmosphere, and it forms this weak carbonic acid. The weak carbonic acid releases the H positive ion, and H positive ion is something that replaces the alkaline earth cations like potassium, sodium, calcium, and silicate minerals, and results in this partial dissolution and formation of the clay minerals, release of soluble ions into the solution. Like how feldspar kaolinite form is like that only. Hydrolysis. Now hydration is something that there is addition of water molecules without ion replacement. So anhydride से जब gypsum बनता है तो hydration is there. Oxidation reduction, electron transfer reactions, example Fe2 positive and Fe3 positive, does not involve H positive cations. And insulation is physical weathering due to thermal expansion. No chemical reaction is involved, just sunlight playing its role. Now coming to the 62 question. Which one of the following parameters for sedimentary grain size distribution analysis is not correctly matched? So grain size distribution are described by using the four statistical parameters with each distinct meaning. So mean means there is this average grain size we need to find, and median is the midpoint distribution that happens. More is the most frequent size that we get, And standard deviation tells us about sorting. Skewness tells us about the asymmetry. Kurtosis tells us about the pickedness. So yeah, standard deviation, the first one is sorting of grain, that is correct. Mode is the one how frequently, most frequent grain size is there. So midpoint is the median, so this is incorrect. Skewness, yes, the two tells us about the asymmetry in the grain size distribution, and kurtosis, there's the two tell about the pickedness in the grain size distribution. Now coming to the 61 question. Okay, so which one of the following statement regarding the sedimentary gravity flow is incorrect? Okay, so we have to here need to understand the sediment gravity flows are downslope movements by the driven gravity, and they're classified by how sediments is transported. So grain flow, like there is a grain to grain collision that happen. Fluidized flow, there is upward pore water pressure that is happening. Debris flow, there is a matrix strength that comes in play and the cohesion between them, and turbidity current is the turbulent suspension, like how it's happening. Now, statement 1 is the grain flows occur when cohesive sediments move downward under gravity. So, it is incorrect. Why? Because grain flows occur in a non-cohesive sediments, not cohesive ones like sand and gravel. Sediment is supported by grain to grain collision, not cohesion. So cohesion is something that characterizes the gravity flow, not the grain flow. So confusing grain flow with the debris flow. So first is incorrect. Now coming to the second question, fluidized flow are concentrated dispersions of grain supported by pore water. So in fluidized flow, water moves through the pore spaces and it counteracts the gravity as well. It is common in the quicksand conditions and liquefied bed condition, and the sediments, they appear to float at the pore pressure support. Now coming to the debris flow, they occur when slurry-like mass move downhill under gravity. That is correct. Debris flows, they are very highly concentrated, mud-rich, and cohesive, and they support this, metric strength and buoyancy, and they are typical of submarine fans, alluvial fans and landslides. So third is correct. Now coming to the turbidity currents are the gravity flow in which the sediment is supported by upward turbulence in flow. So turbidity currents are dilute and they are high in velocity, and they support this turbulent eddy. Supporting mechanism is that, and they are responsible for the graded bedding like Boma sequence. So option 4 is correct. Only option 1 is incorrect. 1 is incorrect. Only इसी option में 1 नहीं है, तो B will be the correct one. With this, I'm gonna end the 2025 sedimentary geology PYQ analysis. Thank you.